It's Monday. Solo: A Star Wars Story had its second weekend in the box office. That's the big news story today. We're going to break down why it is continuing to be a colossal failure. And we're going to talk about the fallout online for Disney Star Wars in general. So yeah, if you're one of those people that just doesn't want to talk about that stuff, this might not be the show for you. But that is indeed what is in the news, so that's what we're going to do. This is the Nerdy News Rundown, your daily dose for nerdy news. Let's get you filled in. Happy Monday, everybody. I don't know. Do you guys have a case of the Mondays? Let me know. I'm not doing too hot. This coffee's nice and hot, though. All right, so let's get right into it. Solo: A Star Wars Story had its second weekend in the box office. This is the big hot news topic of the day. A lot of people are talking about this because it's really, really bad. Projections on the film as of Thursday of last week were something like $40 million. If the film could even get a little bit over $40 million domestically, it was going to be a very good sign for the flick, and unfortunately, it came way under that projection. As it stands currently, and the numbers do tend to shift around just a little bit, but you are looking at a $29.3 million second weekend for Solo. Unfortunately, that represents a 65% drop-off from the already incredibly disappointing first weekend in the box office. I mean, you're talking about a film within 2 weekends that has a domestic total of what Rogue One did in 3 days. It's very, very bad. So I want to throw a couple of numbers at you just to sort of illustrate why this is such a crazy thing. Some people out there were like, yo, it's not a flop, it's not a colossal failure, blah, blah, blah. Guys, you got to face reality on this one. Like I said, the domestic total on Solo currently is $148 million, literally less than what Rogue One did in 3 days. That's absolutely crazy. Now, something else I wanted to bring up too before we get to more Solo numbers is the toy money. Now, toy money is actually a huge part of most big franchises these days, and especially when it comes to Star Wars. Star Wars has a huge history of selling a lot of toys, and that being a big part of the revenue that they bring in. Now, we won't know the Solo toy numbers for several months, but we are finally getting a good picture at what that type of merchandising was like for The Last Jedi. So, according to Deadline, which is one of the most trustworthy trades out there, the toy sales for The Last Jedi came in at around $450 million, and they were projected to do $600 million. That's a loss in revenue of $150 million. That's no small chunk of change, and I can't imagine that Solo will be much better. I mean, first of all, not a lot of people are even seeing the film, so I don't know how much merchandise you're going to move in that sense. There's also the boycotters, man, and you're absolutely crazy if you think they're going to buy any toys, and if anything, they'll buy them to burn them, which at least would be some toy sales. So yeah, it's looking really, really bad financially for Star Wars in general, but let's get back to some Solo numbers here. Now, the worldwide gross right now for Solo looks something like $265 million total. And if these percentages continue to drop, if people don't really go out and see this movie, you're not looking at a very good take. Somewhere in the range of $300 to $350 million. What that means, just no speculation here, straight facts, is that they will lose money on this movie. That's right, Lucasfilm is going to lose money on this movie. A Star Wars movie, for the first time in the history of this franchise, which is over 40 years in length, one of their movies will lose money. Whew, it's bad. Now, as far as my own speculation about what the total number for Solo is going to be, I don't see it being much better at all. In fact, the more I think about it, it might not even hit that $350 million. And it's just really bad. Now, it's sort of like mincing of words here. You know, it's already just colossally bad. So, the difference now between, another 30, 40, 50 million dollars is kind of irrelevant. And the truth of the matter is, at least from my perspective, the failure of the film is almost not even the story. It really has more to do with what the brand is going through. But that story is what we're going to get to in just a second. So that's the news out there, guys. Colossally missing the mark. That is the Star Wars story of Solo, a Star Wars story. So I want to open it up to you guys. What do you think about this? Do you see a silver lining here? Is it possible that the film will find some legs and crank that number up? Or are you pretty much in agreement that, yeah, this movie is going nowhere fast. It's not really going to make much more money than it already has. And as a side to that, I kind of want to know, how many times have you personally seen this movie? Are you planning on seeing it some more? I just kind of want to get a metric for how people over here are feeling about the film. All right, the next story of the day is Solo related, but it really has more to do with what Solo means for the Star Wars brand. Now, the reality of the situation is all sorts of news sites and content creators out there are piggybacking off of the Solo failure in order to get clicks, in order to get people's attention. And it's legitimately working. I mean, Star Wars is such a huge property. When something as big as a Star Wars movie losing money happens, it's definitely news. It's definitely worth covering. However, the problem here and the damage for the brand is that more and more people are reading about how Solo is a failure and Star Wars is in trouble than are going to see the movie. So the narrative out there is that things are really bad, which also kind of adds to the fact that things are very bad. Perception in a lot of ways definitely affects reality, and the stock price for Disney is probably going to be dropping throughout the next couple of weeks. Now, as a small aside to this story, and we're not going over MCU news today, but you have to understand the Disney deal between them and Fox is contingent upon stock prices. A lot of that deal is Disney stock, which up until a couple of weeks ago was thought to be ironclad strong. And so even a small percentage drop, a 2-3% drop in stock price is massively impactful to the entire company of Disney. And so yeah, there's a lot of stories out there talking about, I'm sure you've seen a lot of them. It's pretty bad. On top of all of that, it really feels like The Last Jedi divide is getting more and more credit for the current state of Star Wars and the lack of box office for Solo. Now, a lot of people are being pretty realistic here. We're not saying that the boycotters had this much of an effect. Instead, it is more like the divide from The Last Jedi had a pretty big effect. As I said often in the coverage of The Last Jedi and just my Star Wars content in general, moving past it, it's like we didn't have a proper metric. We didn't really know how much damage was done by this divide. That narrative is getting more and more clear, and a lot of people are pointing to that film as the reason for the current trouble that Star Wars is facing. You even have people that have classically defended Disney Star Wars sort of jumping ship. I mean, there's the now famous Jeremy Jahns video that he did talking about Star Wars, Disney Star Wars, the identity politics that are prevalent within Disney Star Wars. That was a huge win for people that were on the other side of the fence when it comes to Disney Star Wars. The haters, the boycotters, that whole group of people saw that as a huge win. Recently, even John Campea put out a video about 5 reasons that Kathy Kennedy needs to step down. Once again, a huge win for that side of the divide. And I'm sorry, guys, I hate to say it. Like, yes, there are asshole people on that side of the divide. There are people out there that are trolls. That's true. But there's plenty of people that just don't like what's going on with Disney Star Wars. And I think that all of this stuff that's happening right now is just giving more legitimacy to those people, not the fringe crazy people, the reasonable people that do not like Disney Star Wars. And so when this happens, when you have people that have classically defended you sort of turn on you, I mean, it's a very bad series of events. So I'm not lying, and I'm trying not to exaggerate here. This is a very important moment in time for Star Wars as a company and as a brand. I mean, if they don't fix things immediately and take some kind of corrective course action, it's going to be a very bad 2019 for Star Wars. And as a Star Wars fan, you should not want that. Like, you shouldn't be so just in love with your fandom of the current Disney Star Wars that you're like, nah, screw all these people, especially the people that suck. I don't care about them. Let's just continue and double down on the stuff that I like. That's kind of selfish, not really fair, and at the end of the day, that will lead us to a point where there's no Star Wars whatsoever. If the thing can't make money, it's not going to be out there for us to enjoy. So I know that sucks to hear, but it's the reality. I mean, like, you know, feel free to unsubscribe and do all that craziness. That's totally fine, but it's the reality of the situation. Disney has 2 parks coming out next year that they have spent probably at least $600 million on. They have Star Wars Celebration next year in 2019, and they have episode 9 coming out later that year, and the live action show is said to be coming out next year as well. That's a whole lot of Star Wars, and if they don't fix things in this fan base, I feel like it's going to be a disaster for them. And so, yeah, I really want to know what you guys think about this. I mean, I know it's kind of sucky to talk about, but it's just the reality of the situation. So from a branding perspective, what do you think's going on here? What do you think Star Wars needs to do? What side of this are you falling on? I just want to hear your thoughts about all this. Please let me know what you're thinking in the comment section below. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for hanging out, getting your nerdy news over here. Plenty of dope news stories throughout the week, so make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications so that you can get filled in every morning, Monday through Friday. You can click below to watch more dope videos. You can click our icon to subscribe to get all of our future content. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day, and I'll see you giving you the news tomorrow.